Have you ever stopped to think about the fans behind a band? What is it about the music that keeps fans coming back for more? Or is there more? My name is Renae Lipsmeyer, and I am the host of this podcast, The Space Between Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band. Each week, a fellow DMB fan joins the show to discuss their journey with the band. Welcome to the Space Between Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the fans behind a band that has been putting music out for 30 years, over 30 years. Over 30 years. And so if this is your very first podcast to listen to, welcome to the Space Between Podcast. We talk about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band. It is my personal favorite band. It has been in my life longer than everything else except for like my mother, my father, my brothers. This has kind of outlasted everything else. And so I'm just so thankful to still have this band that is still touring, that is still putting out music. And so I'm just floored. But more than that, when I started following this band on the regular, meaning like actually going to see them live and kind of keeping up with their tour dates and digging into like who this band was, I found out real quick that the fans around this band have created a story outside of the band itself. And so once I was exposed to that culture and that community and the passion and love that is for this band, I knew that there was a story that had to be reported. It had to at least be documented in history so that maybe one day somebody in the future stumbles across this podcast and goes, oh, wait a second, the Dave Matthews Band, who was this over 30 years? Okay, we need to jump into looking into this. And so that's my point. That's my purpose of this podcast, is to document the fans of this band. And so welcome again to the Space Between Podcast. Usually I have a guest with me, but today it is all me, and here is why. The Dave Matthews Band has just finished up their first tiny part of the U.S. summer tour. It started at the end of May in beautiful Tampa, Florida. They did a night in Tampa, Florida, 2 nights in West Palm Beach, Florida, 2 nights in Jacksonville, Florida, and then they went to the Woodlands, Texas, and then Dallas, Texas. The band is currently on a week-long break. Actually, it's just a little bit over a week, and I am so thankful that the guys are getting this time of rest because they have been killing it. I mean, these guys don't stop, and actually, I'm just so thankful, like, don't stop. Don't stop, can't stop, all of the stuff. Like, don't do it, band. I love you so much. But I'm thankful that you guys are getting some rest and relaxation outside of your really busy tour schedule. So that is what we're going to talk about today. I was so lucky, so blessed, so all of the things to get to go to a couple of several of these shows and the US tour. So I'm just going to talk about those for a few minutes because, of course, me going to shows is twofold. Number one, of course, this is my favorite band. I love everything they do. When they get on stage, I have said and will say again, they could get on the stage and sing the phone book, and I would be standing there absolutely in love with A through Z. Like, sing the Smith section again. Like, I fucking love this band, and they can do no wrong in my eyes. They are human. They lose their way sometimes, but they're killing it, and they are the best that I personally think that they ever have been, which is just mind-blowing in itself, because typically bands, when we remember back to bands that we loved in the past, especially bands from the 90s, because of course the Dave Matthews Band started in 1991. So I relate a lot back to the 90s and the early 2000s because that's when my youth was. That's when I was getting out of high school, going to college, getting married, like having children. That's kind of like the beginning part of my adult life. And so music was a big part of it. And the 90s, wow, the music, so much good music. But yeah, the Dave Matthews Band is a band that's been around for over 30 years, and they still are making amazing, great music all this time later. Can you think of, I'm going to challenge you, can you think of 5 other bands that started in the early 90s that have been making music for over 30 years and are still currently doing a ridiculously hard tour schedule all over the world, and that has a fan base like the Dave Matthews Band? I'm not questioning that. That probably exists, and it's so far out of my like wheelhouse that I don't know. So I encourage you, if that's something that you do know, as bands that are similar to the Dave Matthews Band, as far as like how long their longevity, definitely hit me up. I'd love to know more. I'm so open about that. But of course, we're going to talk about the Dave Matthews Band on this podcast because that's what I love, and that's what this podcast is about. So yes, we started the tour. We, the Dave Matthews Band, we as the fans. I'll speak that way. It's we all the time because I'm just a collective person. I'm like, everybody's included in this. And so the Dave Matthews Band themselves started the tour in Tampa. I was so lucky to get to go. And honestly, it's because I absolutely lucked out on airfare. I live in Arkansas, so getting to Tampa, Florida would be a hurdle if I had to drive. And so, flights can be very expensive going into the summer. And so I somehow managed to swing a ticket for $80 on Allegiant. We had a one-way flight that I needed to book from Northwest Arkansas to Tampa, but it's Clearwater, St. Pete's, which is just like 30 minutes outside. So for $80, it was worth flying in. And so I got to go to the Tampa show. And before I even talk about the Tampa show, I want to talk about the fans and what they were doing before the show, because again, that's what this podcast is about. So in my journey with this band, again, I have met so many amazing people, so many people that love this band. And with that has come, um, me learning about the community and learning that there are people that have like pre-show parties, post-show parties, and what that means is they host parties before and after shows to get together with other fans of the Dave Matthews Band because you like the same band. It's like if you went to a Packers game, a Cowboys game, I don't know, any football game, any sporting game, you are going to talk about the team at hand, right? So that's what we do at these meetups. We talk about our band, we talk about the excitement that is before us, that is behind us, all of the things. And so I met a couple of guys who have been on this show several times. And so they created a night zero the night before Tampa, Florida. And so big shout out to Ridge Richter. He is from Ohio. He put this party together at a place called Eastside Lounge, which was honestly just so Florida. I loved it. It was amazing. But not only was the venue amazing, but like the music, he had live music, which was by a man named Rob Messina. If you've never heard of him, check him out. He is a musician that tours and he does his own thing, but he also has a lot of likeness to Dave himself. And so be sure to check out Rob Messina. But they set up this atmosphere of music and food and door prizes out the wazoo. Ridge prides himself on making sure that everybody that shows up to these parties is going to walk away with something, but also, more importantly, they're going to walk away with the feeling that they have just met new friends. It is such an inclusive atmosphere. Ridge really just goes over and beyond and uses so much of his personal time, his personal money to put this together because he loves the band. But again, he loves the fans of this band because they are amazing. So big shout out to that meetup. It was so much fun, and there were prizes, just so many prizes. And so we did Tampa. Of course, Tampa was an amazing concert. Every concert is an amazing concert. I'm not going to get into set lists. There are so many amazing Dave Matthews Band podcasts. If you are not familiar with those, please do yourself a favor. And when you get through listening to this one, check out. I hope that I'm going to be able to name them all of them. The Pod That Jane Likes, such a clever name. It's very easy to remember. So the Pod That Jane Likes, they really do go into set lists. They go into statistics. There's 4 hosts, 2 women, 2 men. Always a great conversation in that show. Then there is the Corner of Gray Street, which is hosted by 2 men. They have a lot of guests, such as Steve Lillywhite, different producers, directors, but they also are very much into statistics. And so definitely check them out. And then my newest find is Posters in Every Direction. That is hosted and it was created by a husband and wife team. And they really dig into the posters that can be bought at a Dave Matthews Band concert. They really dig into the artistic meaning, but not just the meanings in those posters, but who in the world designed, created, painted, drawn, whatever it is in those posters, who is the artist. And so a lot of times they even have the artist on the show to talk about their posters. So it is such a cool podcast, all of them. So be sure to give them a listen, and they are going to get more into set lists and things like that. My podcast is definitely just about the fan side, what it's like to be a fan of this band and the community, the culture that it has outside of the band. And so I believe that all of the podcasts together have this band just, all in all corners. Like we've tried to figure out, and well, actually we didn't try to figure out, it just happened that we all 4 picked very different topics, and I think it's such a beautiful thing because they all just really work together and none of the information is repeated. So I love them, and I totally want you to look into those. So of course, right after Tampa, we went to West Palm Beach. It was my first time at Tampa, my first time at West Palm Beach. I had never been, but it was one of those venues that everyone says you just have to go to. There's always such a vibe there. Of course, it's on the beach, and this Arkansas girl was like, hell yeah, I need the beach always. I live so far from the beach, and so thankfully my husband was able to meet me in West Palm Beach. The venue was amazing. I loved it. We had a great experience, but also West Palm Beach is usually scheduled in later summer, July, I think, June, July, late. And so it's a lot hotter. We get the show in late May. And let me tell you, everyone was like, whoa, it is never like this. It's so much cooler. And so we had a really great experience. And of course, the set list, because of course it's a 2-night venue every year. It was amazing. We, of course, got to see so many friends and family. That is part of this Dave Matthews Band community. And we just could, there's the music that gets us there. But honestly, at this point, I'm going to say it's the fans that get me there. Like, I get so psyched to see all of my brothers and sisters who are there to jam out to their favorite band, just like I am. And even if it's not their favorite band, because I'll say it, my husband, this is not his favorite band. Believe it or not, the Dave Matthews Band is not his favorite band. We asked him the other day what his favorite band was, and I'm really happy with his answer because I can totally jam to these guys. But his favorite band is the Foo Fighters. So shout out to them. I love them. It's my second favorite Dave. That's what I always say. It's my second favorite Dave, of course, talking about Dave Grohl, who's the lead singer of the Foo Fighters. And so, there are a lot of people at Dave Matthews Band shows, who are not gung-ho, but I have not personally encountered a lot of assholes at Dave Matthews Band shows. I know people used to talk about that in the early 90s, that Dave Matthews Band shows that their fans were such, snotty, like frat boys, but also kind of like, remember the 90s, like Dave was on stage in PJs, and yeah, it was just a different time, and everyone's grown up now. So not that everyone there is grown up, but all the fans that were there in the 90s and 2000s, let's be honest, are older now. And so I just haven't met a bad person. I haven't had a bad experience. Matter of fact, I've just had countless amazing experiences at every show. And so West Palm Beach was amazing, mostly because my husband got to join me. And honestly, every show is just so much more fun when he's there, to bring him into my world, to show him what I love, what my passion is, but then also to get to introduce him to all of these people that I'm talking about at home all of the time. I'm talking about a lot of names all of the time, and he has no connection with these people. So to see him build friendships and make his own contacts at these shows, it really has it's just made my love for this band and this community continue to grow. Like, y'all, this just keeps getting better and better for me. And I hear that over and over and over from other fans, that this experience, this band, this music, this community, these musicians, these artists are changing our lives. They are imprinting on our hearts. And it just continues to get better. So yeah, it just continues to get better. And so right after West Palm Beach, the boys went to Jacksonville, Florida for 2 night stay. And I heard nothing but good things about the venue, that it was a very small venue. I want to say that it, less than 6,000 capacity, which if you think about that is a super small venue. So what an intimate experience to get to be there. Justin and I did fly home on Monday after West Palm Beach so that we could get home, work one day, and Justin worked 2 days. I worked one day. We washed our clothes, we repacked our bags, and we got in our car and we headed to the Woodlands, Texas, which was like a 9-hour drive for us. But here was the benefit. We got 2 shows in Texas. How could we not go to both? So we drove to the Woodlands. We stayed with some amazing people. I'm not going to give you the full details because honestly, it probably sounds irresponsible. No, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it because if you're listening to this, you know how this goes. We meet friends at shows. We meet friends on our groups, our Facebook groups. We meet friends through the internet a lot of the times, and we don't meet them in person most of the time until we get to a show. But sometimes the first time we meet them is at their house. So I just want to give a shout out to the 2 that I know are going to listen to this, but I don't know that they want their name blasted all over the internet. So if you were listening to this, thank you for welcoming me and my crew into your home. You guys were amazing. I just, the connection that we were able to make, it was just, y'all were meant to be in our lives. And thank you for supporting the podcast. Of course, that's really kind of how we met, was that, they listen to the podcast and they are big fans of all of the stories that I've been able to capture. So, thank you for letting us stay with you. And then they also were the host. I'm probably giving their names away just a little bit, but maybe not. So they had my hosts also hosted a Night Zero meetup party in the Woodlands at a place called Deacon Baldy's. It was such an amazing place. It was like craft beer, food trucks. They had like 40 taps, and the food trucks, y'all, they were so good. We got pizza. Oh my gosh, I can't remember, and I so badly want to remember the guy. It was from Jersey or something. I hope I didn't completely butcher, but Northeast, cutest accent. I love all the accents because where I live, everyone sounds like me. So I didn't even know I had an accent until I start doing this podcast and they're like, yo, where are you from? But anyways, the pizza was amazing. And here's the highlight of that party. I'm not talking about parties just to talk about parties. And I think I need to even back up a little bit further. a lot of the parties that I go to that are for these fans are not just partying to party. Yes, we're celebrating the band. We're celebrating the fact that we still have this band, but they are also a lot of the times raising money for a charity that they have picked to represent. So I'm going to go back and talk about West Palm Beach, but since we're talking about Night Zero at the Woodlands, they did a raffle to benefit the World Central Kitchen. And if you have never heard of the World Central Kitchen, it's just an amazing organization that provides relief during any kind of humanitarian crisis. We know that that Dave and the bands are big supporters of the World Central Kitchen, and so we have led, or they are leading. We are led by example. What am I trying to say? We have learned about this organization and we see the good that they are doing. And so we were the hosts put a charity raffle together. And guys, I talked with them. They were kind of expecting, based on attendance and based on the fact that it was storming in the Woodlands when we had this, they were expecting that they would see like $200 or $300 raised for World Central Kitchen. At the end of the night, almost $1,500 was collected by the fans of the Dave Matthews Band for the World Central Kitchen. Guys, that blows me away. You should have seen the host, how blown away they were at this unexpected gift of kindness, which, if you have heard nothing about the fans of this band, it is a story that you will hear often. A story of kindness, recurrent kindness, just over and over and over, and for no thing, right? For no thing. Like, they're not doing it for something. They are doing it because they are a genuinely good person. They have the means and resources. They have the time to put into it, because it's not all about money. Sometimes it's a lot about your time and your talents when you're trying to get these benefits together. This was not just some little thing. This was something that they worked hard on to get together. They had a lot of Dave Matthews Band friends that they had at their side helping to get donations together to put this raffle together. And so, guys, I'm floored at the generosity of the fans of this band. And again, this is why I have a podcast, is to talk about the generosity and kindness that the fans of the Dave Matthews Band continue to show over and over and over. This is a story that should be documented, y'all. We need more good and kindness in the news. We need to hear these things. We need this. And so I am documenting it. It may never go anywhere, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with all this information soon. So stay tuned. Don't hit stop yet. I'm not going to just talk about parties. I'm going to tell you. I told a few people already. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with this podcast. So stay tuned. Don't hit stop yet. So I do want to go back just shortly to the West Palm Beach tailgate, to the West Palm Beach Night Zero party. If you didn't see the poster, that's a whole nother story. And I'm not going to tell that story because it's not mine to tell, but there were some really special things that happened at this meetup, which again, I won't say the host's name. If you were part of it, you know who the host was, and you can probably look that up on social media if you really wanted to know. But y'all, the turnout was amazing. It was at a place called Castaway Sports Bar and Grill, which is just located near West Palm Beach on an island called Singer Island. Again, there was live music. No, I said it was Ridge Richter that did the Tampa one. So I'm going to say this one. It was Ben Parker. Ben Parker lives in Florida. He worked hard with making sure that Rob could come down to West Palm Beach to be the live musical guest. And again, he worked really hard, really hard. I talked to Ben a lot. He's a close personal friend. He worked very, very hard with a lot of other Dave Matthews Band fans to get prizes and giveaways ready for a raffle that they did to raise money for an organization called Unsilenced Voices. If you have never heard of Unsilenced Voices, guys, you have to know more about this organization. You can look it up. It is unsilencedvoices.org. So definitely be sure to dig into that. But such an amazing organization. And so we had a raffle. Ben put on a raffle there to raise money for Unsilenced Voices. And they were able to raise $1,500. I mean, again, I'm just floored by the generosity of this fan base. And so it's amazing what a minute can do, right? So let's fast forward. So, after the Woodlands, we went to Dallas. And because Dallas is the next day after the Woodlands, you have a quick turnaround because it's about a 3.5 hour drive from the Woodlands to Dallas. And of course, then tailgating is a big part of Dallas shows. If you've never been, it is located near the big Texas uh, um, Ferris wheel that lights up. So if you Google Dallas, Texas, you'll probably see a Ferris wheel. And so we'll talk about that more here in just a little bit. We did tailgate in Dallas. It was amazing. It's just always such a great crowd. Of course, the set list was amazing. Again, never going to say anything bad about it. What did I go in wanting? That's probably a pretty common question on like, what do you want to hear, Renae? And y'all, I have been so lucky to hear a lot of things that I wanted to hear. Just recently I got Black and Bluebird, which I had never heard live. And the last time they had played it was 2018. So, that was amazing. But I'm still saying that I want to hear Crazy Easy. I have never heard it live with live in person. And so I'd love to hear that. Um, but yeah, Dallas was a lot of fun. We had a great experience. The warehouse saw me fit to give us pit tickets, but then not only that, I applied to be the first entry thing that they're doing this year. Which, if you don't know much about that, definitely just visit DaveMatthewsBand.com and you can kind of read about the warehouse, which is the Dave Matthews Band fan club. So you have. There are some perks to it for sure. So I applied for the first entry and was actually given it. And I had applied before and not been giving it given it. I'm a podcaster, but that does not mean that I can talk, y'all. I can talk a lot, but not maybe like well. So yeah, we got first entry. If you've ever talked to me about the pit, here's what you probably don't know. I love the pit. Who doesn't? I have had the rail before a couple of times and it was fabulous. Of course, it's wonderful. I love it. I love it, of course. And then also, I'm a 45-year-old lady. To have something to like hold on to, it's just easier on your back and legs. So there's some definite perks there. But now, if I get pit, I am going to be near the back or in the middle. Probably in the back though. It's just less crowded, less pushing, I guess. There's just more room to dance, and there is that back rail that you can lean on if you need to. Y'all, back pain is real. And I'm not used to standing on my feet for like 7 hours, 10 hours a day. Like, I'm a nurse, but just like standing in one place is really hard. So Dallas was a great experience. Met so many amazing, amazing, amazing people in the pit. Talked a lot about the podcast. I can't thank everyone enough for those of you that have been on the podcast already, for those of you that have said, hey, yes, I'd love to share my journey, for those of you that are just now finding out about this podcast and what it is actually about and being open to the idea of listening to it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for supporting this mom of 4 and wife and nurse that just thought, hey, I'm going to start a podcast when my life was in a dark place. And if you don't know that whole story, I encourage you to visit the very first parts of this podcast. There's over 100 episodes. I think I'm like past 110 now. And so there's definitely been some there's been some work done. I'll say that. Like, I didn't know what I was doing when I first started 100 episodes ago, and I've kind of gotten the hang of it now. I'm definitely not professional. Well, I'm not professional in any way, shape, or form because I'm not getting paid to do this. So being professional means you get paid to do something, and I do not get paid to do this. And so it is something that I've had to teach myself. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to interview people, which was a skill that I didn't necessarily know how to do. But, being a nurse, you do talk to people and you talk to strangers a lot. But also, I think when you're talking about something that you love and the other person loves it too, conversations tend to be a lot easier. And it's the Dave Matthews Band. We get excited about it. There's definitely some passion behind all of this. And so passion tends to make things a lot better, a lot easier, a lot everything. So yeah, so that's pretty much caught up to where I am now. So Justin was able to go with me to West Palm Beach, Woodlands, Dallas. It was such a blast. We got to do lots of connections with other husband, wife, uh, Dave Matthews Band attendees. And so, again, that just made it even sweeter of an experience for me. And so, thank you to everyone that's listening to this that has made Justin feel like part of the community, because he is. He is a big part of who I am and a big part of why I am the way I am. And honestly, he's a big part of why this podcast can exist. I always joke he's my financial advisor. He's the one that's like, you need to slow down, Renae, or hey, we're doing okay. And so, I can't thank my husband enough for supporting in the ways that he does. Because believe me, this has not been easy for him by any stretch of the imagination. He's been left out a lot, and so not by design, but just because he couldn't always leave his job to go to 24 shows in 2023 and things like that. And so and this is not his favorite band. Can I say that again? This is not his favorite band. So he is really supporting his wife's dreams, and I'm chasing them by writing this story. So here we go. I've been telling you to hold on. We're 30 minutes in, so thank you for listening to me ramble. Again, this is usually not the case that I am on here by myself talking by myself. It's always someone else telling their journey. So again, if this is your very first episode to listen to, just know that this is not normal. So if this has just been a complete wreck for you, don't judge this whole podcast based on this episode. Matter of fact, don't base the whole podcast based on any one episode you listen to. I tell that to everyone. Every episode is so completely different. Because for the most part, there are different people on every episode. And so everyone's journey is very different. There are journeys that are funny, that are tragic, that are beautiful in different ways. Everybody's had different experiences and brought something different to the podcast. And so if you have not found one that made you laugh or made you cry, just, keep listening to them. They are definitely all very different. And I love that so much. It would be hard to get bored listening to this podcast because, we're all talking about kind of the same central theme and topic, the Dave Matthews Band, but no one is telling it in the same way. So it's a great bunch of stories. So that leads me to this. What in the hell am I doing with all of this? Why is there a podcast about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band? Well, I've kind of explained why, and you can dig more into that if you listen to maybe the first 20 episodes of this podcast. But what am I going to do with all this when this is said and done? What if I'm not going to, but what if I actually did collect every story of every fan of the Dave Matthews Band? Then what do I have? Well, here is exactly what I have. When I first started this podcast, I really thought, and I think in some episodes, I think I maybe even said out loud that I was writing a book. Well, as I guess with time and more information and more stories that have been shared, that has changed just a little bit. So what I've decided to do is this collection of stories that I will have, whenever it ends. And it ends because if nobody else comes forward and says, hey, I want to share my story, how I found the Dave Matthews Band. If people don't come forward, then this show is over, because the show's not about me. And I've already told my story way too many times. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I want to help her out, I want to help the mission of this podcast, definitely hit me up on socials. I'm on Facebook under Renae Lynn, Lyn. That is my public profile, so anyone can follow me or whatever on that. But there's a group called The Space Between Podcast, which is on Facebook, so anyone can be part of that group. But then I'm, of course, on Instagram, and anyone can follow me on Instagram. It's just simply under The Space Between _POD. And then lastly, I'm on TikTok under The Space Between Podcast. So if you're interested in sharing your journey, no matter how big, how small, if you just found this band a year ago, You have a journey, a year-long journey. I want to know everything you think about this band. I really do. And I don't know how many people have come up to you and been like, I want you to tell me every single detail of your journey with this band. You probably haven't been hit up too many times for that. So here I am. I'm the girl asking for all the details, and I'm so excited to get every single one. So whenever this ends, and to me, this ending means that the band has retired in some way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like, and whenever that is. I don't know the future. I don't know if we have 5 years, 10 years, 2 days. I don't know the future. None of us do, because there's a lot of things that can happen. We're not just waiting for death, right? we're not waiting only on that. There are physical parts of being a rock star that hard on your body, but then also just with aging, our bodies change, and so things become harder than they once were. And so whatever happens, whenever it happens, when this band stops making music as a whole, and I say that because I do believe that even after the Dave Matthews Band is over, I think several of them may go on to do their own type of different kind of career, maybe their own solo career, maybe joining up with someone else, maybe just doing, I don't know. The sky's the limit when it comes to these guys. But when the Dave Matthews Band is over, I am going to take all of the entries that I've had, every episode of this podcast, excluding, a few, because I've shared my story a couple times. And so obviously I don't need to share those multiple times. I am taking all of them, and I am creating a love story to this band, because our journeys are just that. They are a story of love, a story of hope, a story of what music has the power to do, what art has the power to do. I think oftentimes people forget the power of music, and how that looks in different people's lives. It can all do something very different for all of us. All of us have a different way that makes us feel. And so I'll be collecting all of these stories once this is over. I will use all of these stories to write a love story, like I said, and my hope is to use this in some small way to do a very small documentary about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band, in my own way, specifically using these stories that I've recorded. But if not a documentary, because obviously I'm a nurse, I don't have the means, the access, the knowledge, anything to do that. But also, I didn't know how to do a podcast. So I can learn. And I hope that each of you remember that, like, no matter what you're doing in life, if you have a passion, if you have a drive, if you have a want to do something outside of what you've always done, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. I am living proof of that. I'm a nurse, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I have somehow managed to create, produce a successful podcast. But it's not because of me. I mean, yes, I am doing it. I am putting it together. I am a solo person in the space between podcasts. I don't have anyone helping me. I used to have an editor, and I just got to a point where I couldn't pay anyone anymore to help me. And I hated that part of it, but I am doing this podcast by myself, and I'm okay with that, because again, I am writing a story. I'm writing a story that will be used once this band is done with their career in whatever shape or form. And again, this will be used to document the change that they had, the effect that they had on this earth. Honestly, if I'm being really honest, the impact that they had on the planet Earth, and the souls that they touched, in so many ways. And so that's what I'm doing. I've had some fun. I am got to go to some concerts in 2024, but guess what, guys? I'm done, and that hurts. I'm done. And that is so weird to say. We're just barely in June, and people ask, well, when's your next show? And I'm like, I'm done for the summer. I'm done. I'm not going to anymore. And they're like, why? Well, it takes time and money. We all know this, right? And so I got to get back on the train of making some money and being a nurse, and also just spending time with my family. We've got an incredible vacation that my husband has so kindly put together for all of us. And, you know, all of my children are going, but even cooler than that, my children's girlfriends and their families are going with us. And so we are going on a great big trip. And of course, that's taken time and money as well. And so I'm off the road for the summer, but that does not mean that there will not be an episode or a week that goes by without the space between podcasts, because it does not require me being on the road for these stories to continue. That's not a requirement at all for this podcast. I just enjoy doing it because it is my favorite band, but also I love making that physical contact with people that I've grown to love, the stories that have been shared. And now, you know, I get to see my friends that have been on my show, and I know so much about them because they've shared personal things with me and personal things with you as you listen to their episodes. I've met their children, and until then I hadn't only heard about them and maybe seen a picture of them, but I heard stories about them. And so to make those connections and put all the dots together, it's just made this beautiful, beautiful story. And so again, you know, yes, I go to Dave Matthews Band concerts because they're my favorite band and I love the music. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. But now I like going to Dave Matthews Band shows because I get to see my friends, my family members, these people that I've invested so much of my heart into, that people that I love genuinely. And that is something that I never want to stop doing. But we can't all go to every show. It's just not, that's just not what we're doing. We're just fans, and we're not part of the band. We're just fans. And so that's what we're talking about. And I can't thank everyone again enough for supporting this girl's dreams, and to understand what my mission is in this podcast is to continue to write this story as long as we have one. Shine your light while you have one, because guys, we're not promised tomorrow. And so I will enjoy it while we have it. Celebrate we will. And y'all, I can spill out a million lyrics if you want me to, but you know, my next thing is to ask a favor. If you are listening to this and you know someone that loves this band and that would be willing to share their journey on my podcast, please share my information with them. Tell them to reach out to me because I don't know them. So I can't reach out to them. So they can message me on any of the socials, but also I have an email. It is kissonthelips.smire@gmail.com. Here's why that's going to be easy for you to remember. My last name is Lipsmeyer. I say it every episode. Lipsmeyer. It's on every logo that I have. So Kiss on the Lipsmeyer. That isn't that clever? It's so clever. That was like mine and Justin's wedding hashtag. So we paid someone like $20 to put hashtags together for our wedding, and they came up with Kiss on the Lipsmeyer. What I would have never come up with that, but it's absolutely perfect for my name because it makes Lipsmeyer very easy to remember, and otherwise it's very hard to remember. So kissonthelips.smire@gmail.com. You can send me an email and say, hey, I'd just love to share my journey. And that's it. That's literally the only words you have to say. You don't have to send me a big long page on why you think that you should know. I mean, honestly, I need your stories, no matter how small, no matter how big, no matter how complicated. If you don't think you have one, you do. You do. So reach out to me, have your friends reach out to me, because again, we need more stories to go into this beautiful story of love. And so, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode with just me rambling on and on. Be sure to stay connected on all the socials to see what's up next. I have some things I'm doing in the fall, so I definitely want you to know about those. And if you're going to be at those events, I'd love to meet up with you because, guys, there's some big things happening this fall. Let us not forget that summer is not the end of this band. Our favorite band is being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this October, and I just couldn't be more proud. I'm like that proud mama that's just like tearing up like, oh, yay. It's like the Super Bowl for the band and they won it. And I'm just so happy for them. So guys, we have big things coming up. So stay tuned, stay on all the socials, and be sure to share this show with a friend. If you are just listening to this, just know that you can also watch this and a lot of other of my shows on my YouTube channel, which is just simply the Space Between Podcast. With Renae Lipsmeyer on Instagram. On YouTube? Can you believe that like no one watches this on YouTube? Like I can see the numbers. No one watches it. It blows my mind. There have been so many cool stories that like I think you should watch just because people submit like their pictures and videos and things, and I upload all of that to YouTube. So be sure to like and subscribe. The things your kids tell you they want to do to their favorite YouTuber, you got to do that so I can get some credit for people listening to it. See if anyone's listening to what I'm doing, but subscribe and like to those videos. And then if you're listening to this on a podcast app, if you can hit that subscribe button, subscribe's definitely part of the data, part of the statistics when it comes to looking at podcasts and, do we continue? Is anyone listening? Because if no one's listening, oh, well, honestly, I don't give a fuck. I love that people are listening. It makes my heart so happy, but I can still write the story if no one listens. But what I can't do is write the story if if no one offers up their stories, because it's not about me, guys. It's not about me. It's about everyone else. I've told my story and now I need for you to share yours. And so, guys, I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the show. I joke that I don't give a fuck, but honestly, I give so many fucks. I love this band. I love this community. And so until the next time, guys, every week we put out a new episode. And then I promise you the next one is not going to be all about me talking about this band. And so stay tuned. Be sure to do all the things I mentioned before. And in the meantime, peace, love, and Dave Matthews Band.